Hi guys, this is Granary. Welcome back. You can leave a like and subscribe for future updates if your cell phone, tablet, or computer has YouTube notifications turned on. Here are the Starter Settlement Guide build order tips and tricks. As soon as we load into the map, we can pause while we pick the building layout areas, or we can set the first building down and build the others while we are on play mode waiting for construction. The first building we want is the logging camp with a permanent worker for immediate timber gathering. Timber will quickly run out during initial setup, so gathering timber will help with upkeep. Once the lumber camp's storage becomes full, we can build more lumber camps for excess storage later in the game. Second, we build a forager hut to gather berries. Winter is coming, and if it's left unchecked, food will be scarce. Berries are seasonal and won't be available in winter. Remember to rotate forager hut workers according to the season during initial setup for a year or so. Starting workers are few and will need to be micromanaged during the early part of the game. Moving workers to the forager hut during spring, then moving them into the other necessary buildings late summer, early winter, depending on when the berries have run out. Berries typically run out by winter. For the third building, we'll need to build a granary and staff a temporary worker so that they can pick up the starting food supplies on the ground before weather damages the food. Then move the worker back to unassigned after they have picked up the food supplies so that they can help build and use an ox at the hitching post. If the forager hut becomes full of berries, we can put a temporary worker back into the granary so that they can empty the forager hut to make room for more berries. Later on, a permanent worker will be needed in the granary when there are more families and more food production to keep up with. For the fourth, we'll need a well placed over underground water with road access. For the fifth building, we'll need to build a storehouse and staff a temporary worker to pick up the non-food supplies on the ground. Let's make sure we have the storehouse localized near where nodes and non-food resource buildings will be. Later on, after families begin moving into the settlement when we have enough workers, it is good to keep at least one worker in the storehouse to transport non-food supplies after more workers have become available. For the sixth build order, we'll need to build enough burgage plots to house the 5 starting families. We can build 3 large double house burgage plots with large backyards to add vegetable extensions to cover food scarcity. Remember to build the vegetable extensions that cost 15 silver each. Starter settlements commonly come with 50 silver. If we build at least 3 burgage plots with added house extensions, then we'll have 6 houses, leaving 1 extra space for the first new family to move into the settlement, provided that our approval rating stays above 53%. Lack of food and housing will cause the approval rating to drop too low for new families to join the settlement. For the 7th building, we'll need to build a woodcutter's lodge, not to be confused with the logging camp, as the woodcutter's lodge cuts firewood rather than timber. The firewood in the non-starting supplies is finite. It won't likely last the winter. Build the woodcutter's lodge before the winter begins and staff a permanent worker for fuel consumption. I call this kind of worker a lifer because they'll be there the rest of the game. For the 8th, we'll need to build a saw pit for plank production and should re-employ the forager hut worker in the saw pit after the berries have ran out until they start to grow again in spring. The first winter is a good time to use the planks to upgrade available space in the granary and storehouse. Planks are made from timber. We can set the amount of timber to reserve from the saw pit so we don't run out of timber. The saw pit can potentially empty out timber supplies without continuous inspection or production control. Click the Advanced tab and then click the plus or minus sign to change the amount of timber to hold in reserve for construction sites. For the 9th, we'll need to build a hunting tent and employ a permanent worker. A lifer with the option to build a field stall, highlighted in yellow, at the top of the hunting camp panel. Hunting camps provide meat and a small amount of hides. We need more men at the camp. For the 10th build order, we'll need to set aside a marked area called Marketplace near the burgage plots so the families will have access to the marketplace stalls. Families that had the option to build stalls will build the stalls themselves in a marketplace area which we set aside. For the 11th build order, we'd need 2 to 4 more burgage plots with goat shed extensions this time. A goat shed only needs a small backyard and it provides hides which are needed for the next building. A double house burgage plot will double the hide output. At any time after this, we can build a trade post to start trading excess resource for silver to afford burgage plot extensions. For the 12th build order, we'll need to build a tannery and employ a permanent worker to make leather from the hides. The worker will stock a supply stall with leather which qualifies as clothing for the burgage plot upgrades requirements. For the 13th build order, we'll need a church. The church doesn't have to be staffed unless there are settlers that died in combat or from starvation who need to be buried in the same region as the settlement church. If we can manage to build a trade post, any extra supplies or food can be sold for silver, and then we can purchase another ox to be placed at a hitching post or extra burgage plot extensions. The aforementioned buildings will cover the first and second goal, the first being to encourage settlers to join when there is food, fuel, and available housing. Any approval rating is over 53%. It is a rush to get food and housing established before the approval rating drops, otherwise we have to wait months for it to rise back up if it drops too low early on. The second goal being the requirements met for level 2 burgage plot upgrades to be available. Here's an overview of the build order for a quick reference. You can pause and screenshot or come back to this video. With this building footprint, a settlement will be established. However, there are other buildings in Phase 2, which are governed by circumstance, fertility, rich nodes, and the development choices. All will affect the next set of buildings required to further advance a settlement. This is the first phase for the settlement build order. Fish would make a good source most of the year if there is a shoal of fish in the region. A fisherman's hut can be built to fish in it. You can like and subscribe for notifications and stay up to date. Again, this is Rye. Have a great day, guys.